Hello, and welcome to the English Channel, a simple space for curious minds and growing English skills.
You know that feeling? You're like understanding the grammar, you've got the vocabulary down pat, but then you get into real conversations, especially in English, and native speakers use these phrases that just sort of zip by,
Uh-huh.
or you want to jump it, right. But finding the right words, the ones that sound natural, it feels like you're fumbling in the dark.
Yeah,
You just wish you could sound, well, less like a textbook and more like, you.
completely.
Yeah.
That gap between classroom English and real-world English can feel huge sometimes.
Okay, so let's unpack this. This deep dive, it's all about unlocking those everyday English expressions and really mastering the art of conversation. And why is this so important? Well, because moving past just knowing words to actually using natural phrases and feeling comfortable talking to people, that's a massive step. It's how you really understand native speakers, how you connect, how you build that confidence.
Exactly. And the material you've shared with us, it's just packed with exactly the kind of real-world language and practical strategies that make this jump possible. So our mission today, really, is to sift through all that, pull out the most valuable nuggets,
Yeah.
the specific phrases, the subtle meanings, the tips and techniques that actually work to give you a kind of shortcut to sounding and feeling more natural in English conversations.
Right. So we'll tackle those specific expressions people use every single day, the ones that kind of make up the fabric of casual chat.
Uh-huh.
And then we'll pivot to the practical side. How do you actually start and, navigate conversations, whether it's catching up with someone you know or meeting someone totally new?
Sounds like a plan. Let's dive in.
All right, let's kick off with the building blocks then, those everyday expressions. These are the phrases that native speakers just use like without a second thought,
Right.
but they can really trip up learners because the meaning often isn't literal at all, is it?
Not at all. And understanding them is so crucial, not just for speaking, but honestly for comprehension too. You hear these all the time. It's about recognizing the patterns and, importantly, understanding the intent behind the words.
Yeah, the intent. That's key. The material you gave us is great because it actually groups a lot of these by context, which is super helpful. Let's think about the morning, that busy get ready time.
Yeah.
There's a phrase like whip up something to eat.
Ah, yes. Whip up. Perfect example. It means making something quickly, often something pretty simple.
Okay.
And usually because you're short on time, right? You wouldn't usually say you're going to whip up a 5-course gourmet meal.
Probably not.
It implies speed, maybe a bit of improvisation, like whipping up some eggs or pancakes for breakfast before you have to rush out the door.
That makes total sense. It carries that feeling of speed, of quick action.
Yeah.
And speaking of rushing out, what about things like, come on, let's go? Or adding, we don't want to be late.
Oh, yeah, those are classic motivational phrases, aren't they?
Ah,
Used to hurry people along, especially getting everyone out the door,
yeah, definitely hear that one a lot.
and adding, we don't want to be late. It just provides the reason, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
that little push, that gentle motivation to get moving. It's very functional language.
Functional, right. And when you yourself need to leave quickly, maybe you're talking to a friend and you say, I better run, the source pointed this one out. You're not literally like sprinting away, are you?
No, definitely not. No actual running involved,
Yeah.
usually. It just means, I really need to leave now, or I should probably leave quickly.
Okay.
And the word better here, it often replaces should or need to in casual speech, especially when there's a sort of implied consequence if you don't do it.
Like being late.
Exactly. Like, I better run, I'm going to be late for work, or I better run, I have to pick up the kids.
Mhm.
There's that urgency.
Got it. Urgency because of a consequence. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Daily tasks and the inevitable commute.
The commute.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost synonymous with being stuck in traffic, right?
Oh, tell me about it.
And the comment update you send, on my way,
Yeah.
or even just OMW in a text.
Yep, see that all the time.
These are just, standard ways we talk about the reality of getting from A to B. Very common.
And what about doing those little essential tasks? Not work, not fun, but things like grocery shopping, going to the bank, post office. The material uses the phrase, run some errands.
Yes, run some errands. It's a really fixed phrase, isn't it? It almost functions as a single unit of meaning.
Hmm.
You wouldn't typically say run an errand, even if it's just one stop, unless maybe you're specifying that particular one. Run some errands usually covers a collection of those small necessary tasks you need to get done while you're out and about.
It's like a convenient shortcut phrase then.
Exactly. Bundles them all together.
That's helpful. It groups things nicely. Now, what if those tasks, or frankly anything, feels difficult or annoying? What's a common way people describe that feeling?
It's a hassle. That's the go-to word. Something inconvenient, frustrating, causing a bit of trouble or annoyance.
Yeah.
Like the source mentioned maybe driving kids to different activities every afternoon. That can definitely feel like a hassle sometimes.
Absolutely. I can relate to that. And when something feels like a hassle, what do people often do?
They put it off.
Right, put it off.
Yep, means to delay doing something, basically to procrastinate, like putting off calling the bank because you just know it's going to be a hassle with the wait times and everything.
Guilty as charged.
Huh.
Yeah.
It's a very common human tendency, I think, captured in a really simple phrase.
It really is. Okay, speaking of daily interactions, especially maybe after work or school, the standard questions come out, right? How was everyone's day? Or what did you do today?
The classics.
But the source material had a really neat tip about getting maybe better, more detailed answers, didn't it? Especially with kids.
Yes, I like that one too. Because especially with kids, what did you do today?
Yeah.
Can just get you a shrug or nothing. Yep, the standard non-answer.
So the tip was to ask more specific, maybe more pointed questions based on something you know they did or something you want to encourage. Instead of the general question, try something like, so how is your day being the class energy saver? Did you make sure all the lights were off when you left the room?
Oh, I like that.
It prompts a much better response usually because it gives them a specific role or action to think about and report back on.
That's such a practical application. It shifts from that super open-ended question to one that gives them a framework for their answer. Very smart. And just asking for an opinion on something simple, like dinner plans.
What do you think?
It's incredibly common, so versatile.
Yeah.
About dinner, about a movie you just watched, about, I don't know, the weather. It just signals you're opening the floor, inviting their perspective. Simple but effective.
Okay. Now, thinking about the end of the day, there's a phrase about kind of preparing for rest, calming down.
Yes, start winding down. It perfectly captures that transition from being active and busy to becoming calm, getting ready to relax or sleep for the evening. Time to wind down.
And the material also mentioned the opposite, get wound up. The example was kids getting hyper after a bath, maybe right before bed.
Exactly. Get wound up means to become energized, maybe agitated, sometimes even anxious or stressed about something.
Okay.
Kids getting that sudden burst of energy when they should be calming down is one example. But you could also get wound up, meaning anxious, about a big presentation at work. It's about becoming agitated or sort of restless.
That contrast is really clear. Okay, let's look at some more general phrases for describing situations or feelings. Like clockwork. What does that imply?
Like clockwork. This describes something that happens with absolute regularity, predictably, reliably, without fail. The source example of a baby waking up at exactly 6 a.m. every single morning that's happening, like clockwork. It's predictable.
Got it. Predictable and regular. And what if something isn't happening fast, but, progress is being made just steadily?
That would be slowly and surely. This phrase implies patience, but also persistent progress.
Okay.
It acknowledges that something takes time, it's not instant, but it emphasizes that it is happening step by step. Learning a language often feels like this, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely relatable.
Yeah.
Slowly and surely, you get there. And when something becomes a regular routine, something you do consistently.
You've gotten into the habit of doing it. This describes establishing a regular practice or routine. Like maybe you've gotten into the habit of exercising first thing in the morning.
Or the kids have finally gotten into the habit of getting ready right after they wake up.
Exactly. It's become automatic, a regular thing.
Okay, how about when something unexpected happens? Or the reality of a situation turns out differently than you first thought.
You'd use as it turns out. This phrase introduces a surprising or unexpected piece of information or an outcome that wasn't anticipated. Like you thought the bank was open, but you call, and as it turns out, it's actually closed for a holiday you forgot about. It signals a kind of reveal where reality contradicts your previous assumption.
Ah, yes, the twist. Okay. And on a more positive note, what if you're having a really productive streak, getting lots done?
Then you're on a roll. It means you're experiencing a period of success or productivity or maybe even good luck, and you're keeping that momentum going.
Nice.
Ticking everything off your to-do list early in the day. You're definitely on a roll.
That's a great feeling. But, well, sometimes things don't go so well. What about when a situation becomes difficult to manage or control?
It gets out of hand. This can apply to lots of things. Maybe a party where things get a bit too wild. Or
Yeah.
even just, clutter the dishes or the laundry are piling up and getting out of hand. Or maybe a disagreement that escalates too far. It just means it's becoming difficult or even impossible to control.
Understood. That makes sense. Another phrase from the material that caught my eye was, "It's too bad." Seems simple, but
Yeah, it's too bad. It expresses regret or disappointment. But the key thing, as the source pointed out, is the tone. It can be used really lightly, almost humorously, like the example given, "Oh, I don't have a maid, it's too bad." So it's a casual lament.
right.
But, as the source also illustrated with a political example, it can be used much more seriously to express deep regret about a significant choice or outcome. The tone completely dictates the weight and seriousness of the phrase.
That's a really important distinction. That example about political regret really highlights how much tone can shift the meaning. Okay, moving on to expressing thoughts and preferences. Look forward to something seems pretty straightforward. Always positive.
Yes, always positive.
Yeah.
It exclusively expresses anticipation and excitement about a future event you expect to enjoy. Looking forward to the weekend, looking forward to a vacation, seeing a friend.
Got it. Now, thanks to X, this one, it's too bad, seems like it can swing wildly in meaning based on how you say it.
Absolutely. Huge tonal difference here. It can be genuine gratitude. Thanks to my amazing students, teaching is so rewarding.
Okay.
Or it can be dripping with sarcasm, essentially blaming something. Well, thanks to the dog barking all night, I got 0 sleep.
Yeah.
You really have to listen for the tone to know the actual intent. Is it genuine thanks, or is it blame disguised as thanks?
That's a fantastic point for learners. Pay attention to how it's being said, not just the words. What about when you want to indicate you're not entirely sure about something?
You'd say, as far as I know. This signals that the information you're giving is based on your current knowledge, but, you acknowledge it might not be complete or 100% accurate.
So it's like hedging your statement a bit.
Exactly. It manages expectations about your certainty. You're being cautious.
Makes sense. Now, how about smoothly changing the topic in a conversation or adding a related thought that just popped into your head?
Speaking of topic, that's a supernatural conversational connector.
Oh,
If someone mentions, say, going hiking, and you suddenly remember something related, you can jump in smoothly with, "Oh, speaking of hiking, did you hear about that new trail that opened up?" It just bridges the ideas really neatly.
that's really useful. What about those times when plans change, something unavoidable happens, and you have to sort of accept it and decide on the next best, maybe not ideal course of action?
That's when you use "we may as well" or "we might as well." It suggests doing something because, given the circumstances you can't change, it's the most logical or maybe the least bad option remaining.
Even if you're not thrilled about it.
Exactly. There's often a sense of slight reluctance or resignation. If your outdoor party gets rained out, you might say, "Well, we may as well just order pizza and watch a movie inside then." You accept the cancellation and choose the practical alternative.
Okay, so resignation mixed with practicality. And what about clarifying the scope of a situation, especially maybe when dealing with disappointment, to prevent someone from overreacting?
This doesn't mean X, it just means Y. That structure is fantastic for setting realistic boundaries and preventing overgeneralization or catastrophizing.
Give me an example.
Like, maybe missing one party doesn't mean the friend who hosted it hates you forever. It just means you missed that specific event. Or getting one critical comment on a project doesn't mean the whole thing is terrible. It just means that one aspect needs revision. It clarifies the actual limited impact.
That's a really useful structure for managing expectations, both for yourself and others. Okay, expressing preference. The source mentioned a common alternative in the U.S. to just saying, "I prefer."
Yes, very true. In U.S. English, using "I'd rather do A than do B" often sounds more natural and is probably more common in everyday speech than the more formal "I prefer A to B."
Oh, interesting.
So instead of "I prefer staying home tonight" to going out, you'd more likely hear, "Ugh, I'd rather stay home tonight than go to that crowded bar." It just flows a bit more easily in casual chat.
Good nuance there. Definitely sounds more common. And speaking of preferences, what about being flexible?
The classic go with the flow. This means being adaptable, spontaneous, not needing rigid plans, just being willing to see where things lead, being easygoing about arrangements.
But sometimes, even if you like to go with the flow, you need to introduce a condition or a contrasting idea after saying that.
Right. And for that, you use "that being said." This phrase, introduces a statement that contrasts with or qualifies what you just finished saying.
Okay.
Like, I generally like to just go with the flow on vacation. That being said, for this particular trip, I really do want to make sure we book tickets for that specific museum in advance.
It lets you hold two slightly different ideas together.
Perfect. It allows for that nuance. Okay, what about those moments when something suddenly clicks in your memory, prompted by the conversation itself?
Two very common phrases for that, now that I think about it, or the very similar, come to think of it.
They both signal that the current conversation has just jogged your memory about something relevant or important you hadn't considered a moment ago. Oh, we should probably call your mom. Now that I think about it, we haven't spoken to her all week.
Or, come to think of it, I do have plans this Saturday I totally forgot.
Exactly. Both indicate that sudden recall triggered by the ongoing discussion.
Got it. What about the word spoiled? The source material highlighted its dual nature, which is interesting.
Yes, spoiled can definitely be positive. It can mean being pampered, treated exceptionally well, maybe indulged in a nice way.
Like, oh, my partner brought me breakfast in bed. I feel so spoiled. Or, the example from the source, our neighbors are so kind, always sharing food. We're totally spoiled by them. That's a positive sense.
Okay, and the negative. The negative is probably more common when talking about children, unfortunately. It describes someone, often a child, who is used to always getting their own way, perhaps because they're given too much, and as a result, they behave badly or seem ungrateful. He's so spoiled, he has a tantrum every time he doesn't get the toy he wants.
Right. So context and who or what is being described tells you if it's the good kind of spoiled or the bad kind.
Precisely. Context is everything there.
Okay, one more. The fact that. How is this used?
The fact that is basically used to emphasize the reality or the undeniable truth of a statement you're making. It adds weight to it. Like, I really appreciate the fact that you always listen so carefully. Or, on a less positive note, we just have to accept the fact that the deadline is tomorrow and we're not ready. It highlights the objective reality of the situation being discussed.
Okay, so really, learning all these expressions, it's not just about adding words to your vocabulary list, is it? It's about understanding these subtle, everyday ways that English speakers convey things like speed, frustration, surprise, certainty, preference, connection.
Exactly. They're like the grease in the wheels of conversation. They make interactions smoother, more nuanced.
And using them helps you sound much more natural because these are genuinely the phrases people use day in, day out without thinking.
Precisely. They're the authentic building blocks of everyday chat.
Okay, so we've got a pretty good toolkit of expressions now. Let's move to the second part of this deep dive. Putting those tools to use. Mastering the actual skill of conversation and, small talk.
Right. Because knowing the phrases is foundational, definitely.
Yeah.
But knowing how to actually initiate, maintain, and maybe even gracefully exit conversations, that's the skill that brings it all together.
And it takes practice, right?
Oh, absolutely. It really requires practice. And the material gives us some excellent, very practical strategies for doing just that.
Yeah, I liked how it smartly broke down starting conversations based on who you're talking to. Like, is it someone you know or a complete stranger?
That's a key distinction. With people you already know, you can leverage that existing relationship. The source suggested using common question structures focusing on past, present, or future.
Okay, like for the past, asking, what have you been up to lately? Or maybe more specific, what were you up to this weekend?
Exactly. And for the present, something like, what do you have going on today? Or that slightly more casual version, what have you got going on today?
Right, I noticed that have got construction. And for the future.
Questions like, do you have anything fun going on this weekend? Or looking further ahead, do you have any plans for the holidays, for summer, for specific event? And a really key tip from the source here was about intonation when asking about future plans. Keep it light, keep it curious.
Not demanding.
Exactly. Not heavy or demanding, especially if you're not actually intending to make plans with them. You want to avoid that potential awkwardness. So, light and breezy.
That's a crucial point, how your tone shapes the meaning and avoids misunderstanding. Okay, now, strangers. This is where it can feel trickier, and the source pointed out, it varies a lot geographically, doesn't it?
Oh, huge variation. Small talk norms differ significantly depending on where you are. The example given was the U.S. South, where it's quite common to acknowledge strangers, maybe make eye contact, nod, even say hi.
Right.
Whereas in other places, like maybe a big city like New York, that might be less typical, even seen as unusual.
And the source also highlighted places where small talk is almost expected or encouraged.
Yeah, like from employees at certain types of stores. The example was Trader Joe's in the U.S., which is kind of known for its friendly, chatty cashiers.
Right. Good to know if you're visiting or new to an area. And the park scenario with the dog, that was a great specific example for approaching a stranger.
Yes, because it focuses on the shared environment, something you both can see and comment on. Commenting on a cute dog is a really natural, low-pressure opener.
Like, what a cute dog. Does he come here often?
Exactly. Or asking about the location itself. Oh, have you ever been to this park before? Or do you live nearby? These are low-stakes questions, directly tied to the immediate context you share. Makes it easier.
Shared context seems key for strangers. Okay, the material then listed some universal, generally safe topics for small talk. Anywhere.
Yes, the classics. Number 1, always. The weather.
Can't go wrong there.
Pretty much always safe, simple, non-controversial. Isn't it a gorgeous day? Or, wow, can you believe how much rain we've had lately?
Or that slightly humorous one. Is it hot enough for you or cold enough for you?
Right. Those are often yes-no questions or rhetorical ones, which makes them very easy entry points into a conversation.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Okay, easy entry. Second topic, location. Talking about the place you were both in.
Exactly. Building on that shared context idea, do you come here often? Works for cafes, gyms, libraries, parks. Or how long have you been coming here? If it's a specific venue like a museum or zoo, you could ask, have you had a chance to see the new exhibit yet?
That makes sense.
Or if you're in transit, maybe on a train or plane where you headed, can work. Though the source rightly cautioned to be a bit sensitive there.
Why is that?
Well, the reason for travel might be personal or difficult, like a family emergency. So you just need to be ready to back off gently if the person seems hesitant to share. Read the room, basically.
Good advice. Sensitivity is vital in any conversation, really. Okay, third topic area. Plans. Past, present, or future activities.
Right. So catching up with someone you maybe haven't seen in a while. So what have you been up to? It's a general invitation to share.
Okay.
For more casual invitations like, want to grab coffee sometime or want to grab lunch. Again, the source reminded us to maybe be clear if it's just a friendly, casual meetup versus something that could be interpreted as a date, depending on the context.
Yeah, clarity avoids awkwardness there too.
Definitely. And just asking about general upcoming plans is very standard holiday plans, weekend plans. Got anything fun planned for the weekend?
Okay. And the final big topic area mentioned was job or work.
A very common one, yeah. Especially with meeting new people or with colleagues you don't know super well.
For strangers, the go-to seems to be, so what do you do?
That's the standard phrasing, yes. Even though if you analyze it literally, it sounds a bit blunt. But it's understood as, what's your job or profession?
And the source had that great little tip about adding so at the beginning.
Yes. Just adding so before what do you do? So what do you do? Makes it sound much softer, more natural, less like an interrogation.
That tiny word makes a big difference. Simple, but effective. And to go a bit deeper than just the job title.
You can ask follow-up questions like, oh, interesting. How long have you been doing that? Or what did you do before this? And a really good one to understand motivations is, what made you get into that field, that type of work?
Those are good.
And the source also included that really insightful question, the one that often reveals deeper passions. If money was no object, what job would you ideally want to do?
Ah, yeah. That can tell you a lot about someone's real interests.
It really can.
Yeah.
And then for coworkers, the questions are naturally more specific to your shared work environment. So what's new over in your department? Or how's that big project coming along? Or any interesting projects coming up for you?
Great practical starting points. You know, the source material also included a really relatable story, an anecdote about struggling with small talk, even as a native speaker.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
The story about finding small talk really awkward after coming back from living in Korea for a while.
Yeah, specifically at the driver's license office, and then trying to navigate the expected friendliness at Trader Joe's.
Exactly. And it just underscores that small talk, conversation, it really is a skill. It needs practice. And it's something that can feel rusty or awkward even for native speakers if you're out of the habit or in a new cultural context.
It totally normalizes the difficulty, doesn't it? It's not just learners who find it challenging sometimes.
Absolutely. It's a muscle you need to exercise. And to help with that, the source left us with 4 really excellent, concise tips for being a good small talker, a good conversationalist in general.
Okay, what were they? Number 1.
Number 1, put your phone away. Simple, but so important. It signals you're present, you're available, you're willing to engage. It shows respect for the other person.
Makes a huge difference. Okay, 2.
Be genuinely curious about the other person. Don't just ask questions robotically. Ask why and how questions, not just what. Show that you're actually interested in their answers.
Genuine curiosity. Got it. 3.
Don't interrogate. Remember, it's a conversation, a two-way street, not an interview. Share things about yourself, too. Find that balance between asking and telling.
Good point. Balance is key.
And number 4.
Avoid lecturing. Don't just launch into a monologue about your personal favorite, perhaps obscure topic and dominate the conversation. Keep it balanced, keep it relevant to both people involved. Read the room.
Read the room, yeah. Those 4 tips really seem to boil down to being present, being interested, being reciprocal, and being mindful of keeping the conversation engaging and comfortable for everyone.
Well put. That's exactly it. And the source also offered a final kind of comforting reassurance, which I think is important.
Which was?
That, not every attempt at small talk, not every conversation is going to blossom into a deep connection or even a long chat. Sometimes they just fizzle out.
That's true.
And that's okay. It doesn't mean you failed. You tried your best and your best tool in those moments. Just a simple smile.
Absolutely. A smile can bridge gaps, make both people feel more comfortable, even if the words aren't flowing perfectly. It's a universal connector, really.
So true. Okay, let's bring this all back to you, the listener. You came to this deep dive wanting to be well-informed, wanting practical insights, but maybe without feeling totally buried in information. How does diving into these everyday expressions and these conversation strategies actually help with that?
Well, I think it gives you really practical, high-impact tools you can use right away. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the sheer vastness of the English language, you can focus on these specific, common phrases that form the foundation of daily interaction.
Right. Makes it manageable.
Exactly. And the conversation strategies, they provide a clear approach, kind of a roadmap for navigating those social moments that can sometimes feel daunting or awkward. It's really about moving from passive knowledge, just knowing about the language, to active use, giving you concrete ways to sound more natural, feel more confident starting today.
So these aren't just, abstract linguistic concepts we discussed. They are the actual language and the specific skills you can use immediately to feel more comfortable, more confident, and ultimately more connected when you're interacting in English. It really is about participation, not just observation from the sidelines.
Couldn't agree more. So this deep dive, hopefully, has armed you with a solid collection of essential daily English expressions and a clear roadmap for navigating conversations, all distilled directly from the really valuable material you provided us with. And remember, knowledge is always most valuable when it's understood and, crucially, when it's applied.
Absolutely. So here's a final thought for you to maybe mull over. As you reflect on everything we've talked about today, from, whipping up breakfast to going with the flow to navigating small talk at the park, which one specific expression or maybe one conversation tip really resonated with you the most? Which one feels like something you could consciously try to notice when you hear it, or maybe even try to use yourself in your English interactions this week? Just pick one, give it a shot, see how it feels to put this knowledge into practice, even in a small way.
That's a great takeaway challenge.
We really want to thank you for providing the sources that made this deep dive possible today. We genuinely loved digging into this topic with you.
Yes, thank you. Keep exploring, keep listening, and most importantly, keep practicing. Every single conversation is a chance to learn and become more fluent and confident.